Creepy things happen before the grave.
Good night, everyone. The Upside Down Woman by Hack Shuck. Whenever my Uncle Joe visits, I insist he retells the strange story of the Upside Down Woman who haunted his boyhood home in rural Minnesota. Joe grew up with my father and grandfather in a simple wooden bungalow near a small town of maybe 80 people. My grandfather, an utterly joyless man by all accounts, would have beaten the daylights out of Joe for believing in ghosts. So, Joe told no one what he'd regularly see until after my grandfather died suddenly at the age of 33. As Joe lay in his bed at night, a lady would float a couple of feet off the floor, facing away from him and upside down. She'd hover for hours as if stuck in mid-air, wriggling her arms and legs a little and tapping her fingers frantically on the wall, which she seemed to press herself against. Sometimes she'd make a faint mewing sound, like a kitten begging for a bowl of milk. Joe eventually grew to hate the specter's presence, though he pitied her pathetic cries. He noticed that the more he ignored her, the less clearly she'd appear, and the less noise she'd make, until by the time he turned 9, she had disappeared completely. He might have written off the whole scenario as some strange childish phase, if it not for what he learned from an elderly neighbor at his father's funeral. It turned out that my grandfather had bought the house very cheap due to a tragic incident which occurred there back in the 1950s. A beautiful young woman had married a handsome young man, and they were to live together in that same bungalow built by her father. They planned to spend their wedding night in an expensive new bed which folded up into the wall for convenience when not in use. These contraptions have fallen out of fashion somewhat in recent years, though they can still sometimes be found in cheap hotels. But I sincerely hope that nowadays they are far safer than the one which the unsuspecting couple lay down on that night. For the heavy iron bed must have sprung straight back up against the wall, or so the local police concluded, trapping the happy couple inside. The man was crushed to death instantly, but the lady, who was a little slip of a thing, survived for a good while longer, pressed against the wall, upside down, in the dark. Perhaps for a matter of days, next to her dead love. The lethal device couldn't be returned to its horizontal position unless pulled back down forcefully from the outside, and there was no one around nearby to hear the unfortunate woman's stifled cries. The bed was mercifully removed before Joe's family moved in, but he figured it must have stood against his bedroom wall, as there was an unexplained alcove there. As far as Joe knows, that old house stands there still. Though whether that woman still dwells inside is a mystery, as he has refused to ever set foot in there again.